Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. As I stood there, the morning light spilling through the kitchen window, the familiar aroma of coffee did little to comfort me. Instead, my thoughts were a tangled mess, like the vines that crept over our garden fence. I felt like I was on the edge of a precipice, staring into an abyss of my own, making the routine of our life, once comforting, now felt like a cage. And there was this secret, this burning desire for something wild, something untamed, that I'd kept hidden even from John. It was a longing that had led me to do something unthinkable, something that could unravel the very fabric of our marriage. As I set my mug down, the coffee growing cold, I knew I had to face the truth. Would John ever understand? Could our love survive the storm I was about to unleash? Here I am, Amelia, standing in my kitchen, the morning light casting a warm glow over the countertops. The scent of fresh coffee fills the air, a ritual that marks the start of each day. But today, as I pour the dark liquid into my favorite mug, something feels different. There's a restlessness in my bones, a whisper of discontent that I can't quite silence. I glance out the window, watching the neighborhood come to life. Kids are heading to school, their laughter echoing through the streets. The mailman, Mr. Thompson, waves as he passes by, his route as predictable as the sunrise. Our home, nestled among the trees, looks like a postcard of suburban bliss. But inside there's this itch, a yearning for something more. Let me take you back a bit. My life with John has always been a tapestry of simple joys. He's an engineer, you see, with a mind as sharp as the tools he uses at work. But at home he's the man who spends his evenings hunched over tiny tracks, his model trains chugging along with a precision that mirrors his life. And then there's Bill, our golden retriever. We adopted him from a shelter 3 years ago. His eyes were like pools of melted chocolate, and his tail wagged with such enthusiasm. It could have powered a small town. From the moment we brought him home, he became our shadow, our protector, our endless source of love. He sleeps at the foot of our bed. His soft snores, a lullaby that ushers us into sleep. Our days are filled with routine. I tend to the garden where roses bloom in defiance of the seasons. Their petals a testament to my care. At the library where I work part-time, I lose myself in the world of books, each one a portal to another life, another possibility. But it's the evenings that truly define us. The neighborhood comes alive with the sizzle of barbecues, the calling of glasses and laughter. Bill, he's the star of these gatherings, fetching balls with a zeal that makes everyone smile. His bark, a joyous declaration of his existence, is as familiar as the sound of our own voices. Yet as I sit here sipping my coffee, I can't shake this feeling. It's like a shadow at the edge of my vision, something I can't quite grasp. John with his steady presence, his love for routine, his content. But me, I find myself staring at the horizon, wondering what lies beyond our little slice of paradise. I remember the night we met at a friend's party. John was discussing the intricacies of railway systems with such passion, his eyes alight with excitement. I was drawn to him not just for his knowledge, but for the way he made me feel. Seen, understood, our love story unfolded like a well-written novel, each chapter filled with warmth, laughter, and the occasional adventure. But lately, there's this secret, this part of me that I've kept hidden even from John. It's not something I can easily articulate. Not something you'd expect from a woman whose life seems so perfectly curated. It's a longing, a desire for something wild, something untamed. I've always been the good girl, the one who follows the rules, who keeps the peace. But there's this other side, this part of me that craves the unknown, the thrill of the unexpected. It's like a whisper in the wind, a call to something more, something different. And as I stand here, the coffee growing cold in my hand, I realize that this secret, this hidden desire, it's not just a fleeting thought. It's a part of me growing stronger, demanding to be acknowledged. It's the reason I feel this restlessness, this sense that something is missing from this picture-perfect life. I look at the clock, knowing John will be home soon. He'll walk through the door, his smile, as predictable as the sunset, and I'll greet him with a kiss, our routine, unbroken. But inside there's the storm brewing, this secret that could shatter everything we've built. And so here I am at the precipice of my own life, wondering if I dare to explore what lies beyond the safety of our home, beyond the comfort of our love. It's a secret that could change everything, And as I set my mug down, I know that soon I'll have to face it. I've been feeling this restlessness for weeks now, a subtle shift in the air, like the first hint of autumn in the summer breeze. It started with small things, like taking longer walks with Bill. Our usual route around the block wasn't enough anymore. I needed to explore to wander one evening as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the streets. Bill and I ventured further than ever before. We found ourselves in parts of the neighborhood I'd never seen, where the houses were less uniform, the gardens wilder and the people different. There was an old man, Mr. Jenkins, who sat on his porch, his eyes twinkling with stories of a life well lived. He told me about his travels, the places he'd seen, the adventures he'd had. His words painted pictures in my mind, vivid and alluring. Then there was Mrs. Alvarez, a woman with hair as silver as the moon, who invited us in for tea. Her home was filled with artifacts from around the world, each with a tale to tell. She spoke of her youth, of dancing in the streets of Havana, of love, lost and found. Her stories ignited a spark in me, a curiosity about life outside the routine I'd grown so accustomed to. As we walked back home, Bill's tail wagging with the joy of discovery, I felt a shift within me. The world seemed larger, more vibrant, and I wondered why I'd confined myself to such a small corner of it. That night, I returned to find John in the living room, his attention consumed by his model train set. The trains moved in perfect circles, a microcosm of order and predictability. He didn't notice me at first, his focus unwavering. I watched him for a moment. This man I loved and realized how our lives had become like those tracks, looping endlessly without deviation. The next day I decided to shake things up. I planned a surprise weekend getaway, a chance for us to break from routine to rekindle the spark that seemed to have dimmed under the weight of daily life. I envisioned long drives through the countryside, queen ends and nights filled with laughter and whispered promises. But when I shared my plan, John's face fell. He was swamped with work. A project deadline looming like a stormcloud. Disappointment washed over me, but I didn't let it linger. Instead, I made a decision. I would go alone with Bill as my companion. Perhaps this was what I needed, a journey of self-discovery, a chance to explore that part of me that craved the unknown. The morning I left, the sky was a canvas of soft pinks and oranges. I packed light, just essentials, and Bill seemed to sense the adventure ahead, his excitement palpable. As we drove away, I felt a mix of liberation and guilt. John had kissed me goodbye, his eyes apologetic, promising we'd do something special soon. But for now, this was my journey. The drive was serene, the landscape unfolding like a storybook. Bill's head was out the window, his ears flapping in the wind, his nose catching every scent. We stopped at a small town. Its charm, reminiscent of a bygone era, the ban, was quaint, with rooms that smelled of lavender and old wood. That first night, alone in the quiet room, I felt the weight of my solitude, but it was also liberating. I read by candlelight, something I hadn't done in years, and the words seemed to dance off the page, speaking to my soul. The next day, I ventured out with Bill. We walked through fields where wildflowers painted the ground in bursts of color. I met a local artist, a woman named Elise, who painted landscapes with such passion. It was as if she was capturing the very essence of a land. She invited me to her studio, and there, amidst canvases and brushes, I found myself opening up about my life, my restlessness, my hidden desires. Elise listened, her eyes, understanding. Sometimes, she said, we need to step away from our lives to see them clearly. Her words echoed in my mind as I watched Bill chase butterflies, his joy infectious. As the weekend unfolded, unexpected events began to shape my journey. I stumbled upon an old, forgotten path that led to a secluded lake. The water was still, reflecting the sky like a mirror. I sat by the edge, my thoughts drifting like the leaves on the water. Here, in this solitude, I confronted my secret, my longing for something wild, something untamed. I realized that this wasn't just about escaping routine. It was about finding myself, rediscovering who I was beyond the roles I played. The lake, so serene, yet so deep, mirrored my own depths, the parts of me I'd neglected. As the sunset casting golden light over the water, I made a decision. I would not let this journey end. With my return home, I would bring back this sense of adventure, this curiosity, and share it with John. Maybe just maybe we could find a new path together. One that allowed for both the comfort of routine and the thrill of the unknown. With Phil by my side, I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Knowing that this weekend had changed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. The cabin was nestled deep in the woods, a sanctuary from the world, where the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and Bill's occasional bark at a passing squirrel. I had always found solace here, the quiet of nature soothing, the restlessness that had begun to gnaw at me back home. But tonight the silence felt heavier, more profound, as if it was pressing in on me, amplifying the loneliness I felt. Despite Bill's comforting presence, we had spent the day hiking, exploring trails that wound through the forest, the scent of pine and earth filling our lungs. As evening approached, I uncorked a bottle of wine, the rich aroma mingling with a crisp air. Bill lay by my feet, his warmth a small comfort as the sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the cabin's porch. With each glass, the world seemed to soften, the edges of my thoughts blurring. I talked to Bill, telling him stories of my childhood, of dreams I once had, now buried under layers of routine. He listened, his eyes reflecting the dying light, his tail thumping gently against the wood. As the night deepened, the loneliness I had been pushing away surged forward. I found myself leaning closer to Bill, seeking the warmth of another living being. In my inebriated state, his affection felt like a balm, his soft fur under my fingers, his breath warm against my skin. It was then, in a moment clouded by wine and longing, that I misread his affection. What followed was a bizarre accidental intimacy, a moment where boundaries blurred in the dim light of the cabin. Bill, ever loyal, responded to my touch with the innocence of a companion, not understanding the complexity of human emotions. The next morning, I woke with the sun piercing through the curtains, a sharp pain throbbing behind my eyes. The events of the previous night came back in fragmented memories, each piece more mortifying than the last. I sat up, my heart racing, a wave of horror washing over me. I looked at Bill, who was now sleeping peacefully at the foot of the bed. Oblivious to the turmoil in my mind, the realization of what had happened. What I had done was like a cold splash of water. It wasn't just the act itself that horrified me, but what it signified about my state of mind, about my marriage. I tried to rationalize it as a mistake, a moment of weakness fueled by too much wine and too much solitude. But the guilt was relentless, gnawing at me. How could I have let myself go so far? What did this say about my relationship with John? I got up, my movements mechanical, and went to the kitchen to make coffee, hoping the routine would ground me. As the coffee brewed, I stared out the window at the serene landscape, now a stark contrast to the storm inside me. I needed to cope, to make sense of the shocking reality. I decided to write in my journal, something I hadn't done in years. The act of writing, of pouring out my thoughts, felt like a confession, a way to unburden myself. Dear journal, last night was a blur, a mistake that I can erase. I felt so alone, so disconnected from everything that I sought comfort in the only way I knew how in that moment. But it wasn't comfort. I found it was a stark reminder of how lost I've become. I love John. I truly do. But there's this part of me that feels unfulfilled, that yearns for something more than the predictable cycles of our life. This incident, with Bill, as bizarre as it sounds, was a cry for help, a desperate attempt to feel something, anything beyond the routine. I need to confront this. I need to find a way back to myself, to understand what I truly want. This isn't about John. It's about me, about finding my own path, even if it means shaking up the life we've built together. Writing helped, but it didn't erase the guilt. I knew I had to talk to John, to share this part of me that was screaming for attention. But how could I explain this without breaking his heart? How could I tell him that I felt so disconnected that I turned to our cute dog for comfort in such an inappropriate way? The days stretched on, and I found myself walking through the woods again, built by my side. His presence now a reminder of my solitude rather than a comfort. I needed to find peace within myself before I could hope to find it with John. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the forest, I made a silent promise to myself. I would confront my loneliness, my desires, and my fears. I would seek out what was missing, not just for me, but for us. Maybe, just maybe, this bizarre incident could be the catalyst for change, for growth, for a deeper understanding of what we both needed from life and from each other. with Bill's tail wagging beside me. I felt a glimmer of hope, a resolve to face the truth of my own heart and perhaps to find a new way forward together with John back home. The familiar hum of our household appliances and the distant sound of John tinkering with his model trains in the basement felt like a world away from the solitude of the cabin. I moved through the motions of our daily routine, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the unsettling events of that night with Phil. Each step I took felt heavier, laden with the weight of my secret. John, ever the perceptive engineer, noticed the change in me almost immediately. His concern was palpable, his eyes searching mine for answers as he asked, "Amelia, is everything okay? You seem distant." His voice was gentle, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I tried to smile to brush off his concern with a casual, "Oh, just a bit tired from the trip." But the words felt hollow and my attempt at normalcy was as transparent as the morning light filtering through our kitchen window. Avoiding physical contact became my new normal. A simple touch from John felt like it could reveal the storm brewing within me. I'd pull away subtly, offering excuses about needing space or being too warm each time. I saw the confusion in his eyes, the slight furrow of his brow. But he didn't press, perhaps hoping I'd open up in my own time. The days stretched on and my avoidance only grew more pronounced. I'd find myself lost in thought, staring at the roses in our garden, their vibrant colors, a stark reminder of the life I was supposed to be living. The library, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage, each book a mirror reflecting my own discontent. John, in his quiet, thoughtful way, tried to bridge the gap one evening. As we sat in the living room, him with his trains and me with a book I couldn't focus on, he turned to me, his voice soft but firm. "Amelia, please tell me what's wrong. We can't go on like this." The weight of his words, the sincerity in his eyes pushed me to the brink. I felt the confession clawing its way up, but I swallowed it back, managing only "I'm just feeling lost." "John, it's not you, it's me. I need to figure things out." He reached for my hand, and I let him take it, the warmth of his touch, both comforting and terrifying. "Maybe we should see a counselor," he suggested, his voice hopeful it could help us understand each other better, work through whatever this is. The suggestion, meant with the best intentions, felt like a noose tightening around my neck. My guilt surged. The thought of revealing my darkest secret in a sterile office, with a stranger watching, was unbearable. Yet the idea of continuing to live with the secret was equally crushing. I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. Maybe that would be good. But inside I was screaming. How could I tell him? How could I explain that my loneliness, my need for something wild and untamed, had led me to such an inappropriate moment with our beloved Bill that night? As John slept beside me, I lay awake, the silence of our room, echoing the turmoil in my heart. I turned to look at Bill, his form, a silhouette against the moonlight, his innocence a stark contrast to my guilt. The next morning I woke up with a resolve. I couldn't keep this from John any longer. It wasn't fair to him, to us, to this life we'd built. I needed to confront my actions, my feelings, and lay bare the truth, no matter how it might hurt. As I prepared breakfast, the clink of dishes felt like the ticking of a clock, each sound a reminder of the confession that loomed. John came down, his smile tentative, hoping perhaps for a sign that things were improving. "John," I started, my voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you, something that happened at the cabin with Bill." My heart pounded in my C********, each beat a drum roll to the confession I was about to make. He looked at me, his expression shifting from concern to confusion. "What do you mean? Amelia, what happened with Bill?" I took a deep breath, the words heavy on my tongue. "I was lonely, John. I felt so disconnected, and in a moment of weakness I crossed a line. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake." John's face paled, his eyes searching mine for clarity. "Amelia, what are you saying?" I couldn't look at him as I whispered. "I let my loneliness, my need for something more, lead me to an inappropriate moment with Bill. It was a moment of confusion, of misplaced affection. I'm so sorry, John." The silence that followed was deafening. John's reaction was not of anger, but of shock, his mind trying to process what I had just confessed. "Amelia," he finally said, his voice strained. I don't know what to say. This is unexpected. I need some time to think." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I understand. I couldn't keep this from you any longer. I love you, John, and I need to find a way to make this right, to understand myself better. He stood up, his movements slow, deliberate. I'm going for a walk, he said, his voice distant. I need to clear my head, as he left the door, closing softly behind him. I felt the full weight of my actions. The house felt empty, the silence a stark reminder of the distance I had created. I sat there, the coffee growing cold, my mind racing with the implications of what I had just done. Would John ever forgive me? Could we find a way back to each other? After this? The questions haunted me as I waited, the ticking of the clock, the only sound in the room, each second stretching into an eternity as I faced the consequences of my secret. Now laid bare. The session with the counselor was supposed to be about us, about our relationship, but it turned into something much more personal, much more raw than I had anticipated. Sitting in that office, the walls lined with books on psychology and human behavior, I felt exposed, like my soul was laid bare under the fluorescent lights. Amelia, how have you been feeling lately? The counselor, Dr. Luna, asked with a gentle tone, her eyes kind but probing. I took a deep breath, the words catching in my throat, isolated. I confess, my voice barely above a whisper, like I'm losing myself in this routine, this life that feels so predictable. John, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand, his support palpable. Yet I could sense his confusion. He didn't understand the depth of my turmoil, the storm brewing inside me. Dr. Luna nodded, her gaze shifting between us. And what about your relationship with John? How do you feel? It's been affected by these feelings. I looked at John, his face etched with concern. It's not about him, I said, my voice trembling. It's me. I feel like I'm drifting away, not just from him, but from who I am. And there's this secret, this incident that's been eating at me. John's grip on my hand tightened, but he remained silent, waiting for me to continue. The counselor leaned forward, her expression serious. Sometimes secrets can create barriers in relationships. It's important to share, to let go of what's weighing you down. I nodded, the tears I'd been holding back now streaming down my face. It was at the cabin. I began, my voice barely audible. I was alone, and I did something I deeply regret. It was with Phil. John's face went from concern to shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. Amelia, what are you saying? His voice was a mix of confusion and hurt. I was lonely, John, so lonely I crossed a line, a terrible mistake. It was a moment of confusion, of misplaced affection. I'm so sorry. The room fell into a heavy silence. Dr. Luna watched us, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. Amelia, it's important to understand that this isn't just about the act itself, but what it signifies. Your feelings of isolation, your need for something more, they're real and need to be addressed. John, still processing, finally spoke, his voice strained. Don't know what to say. This is unexpected. I need some time to think, I nodded, understanding his need for space. I know, John. I just couldn't keep this from you any longer. I love you, and I need to find a way to make this right, to understand myself better. He stood up, his movements slow, deliberate. I'm going for a walk, he said, his voice distant. I need to clear my head, as he left the door, closing softly behind him. I felt the full weight of my actions. The house felt empty, the silence a stark reminder of the distance I had created. I sat there, the coffee growing cold, my mind racing with the implications of what I had just done. Would John ever forgive me? Could we find a way back to each other after this? The questions haunted me as I waited, the ticking of the clock, the only sound in the room, each second stretching into an eternity as I faced the consequences of my secret, now laid bare. Later at home, the atmosphere was thick with tension. I knew I couldn't let this secret fester any longer. I found John in the living room, his model trains moving in their endless loops, a stark contrast to the turmoil in our lives. John, I started, my voice trembling. I need to talk to you about what happened at the cabin. He turned off the trains. The silence now complete. I'm listening. Amelia. I took a deep breath, the words heavy on my tongue. I was alone, and I crossed a line with Bill. It was a moment of weakness, of confusion. I'm so sorry, John. John's face paled, his eyes searching mine for clarity. Amelia, what are you saying? I couldn't look at him as I whispered. I let my loneliness, my need for something more, lead me to an inappropriate moment with Phil. It was a moment of confusion, of misplaced affection. "I'm so sorry, John." The silence that followed was deafening. John's reaction was not of anger, but of shock, his mind trying to process what I had just confessed Amelia. He finally said, his voice strained. "I don't know what to say. This is unexpected. I need some time to think." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I understand. I couldn't keep this from you any longer. I love you, John, and I need to find a way to make this right, to understand myself better." He stood up, his movements slow, deliberate. "I'm going for a walk," he said, his voice distant. "I need to clear my head," as he left the door, closing softly behind him. I felt the full weight of my actions. The house felt empty, the silence a stark reminder of the distance I had created. I sat there, the coffee growing cold, my mind racing with the implications of what I had just done. Would John ever forgive me? Could we find a way back to each other after this? The questions haunted me as I waited, the ticking of the clock, the only sound in the room, each second stretching into an eternity as I faced the consequences of my secret. Now laid bare, John returned from his walk, his face a mask of contemplation. He sat down across from me, his eyes searching mine for something I couldn't quite grasp. "Amelia," he began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me. It's a lot to process." I nodded, my heart in my throat, waiting for the verdict that could change everything. "We've built a life together, Amelia, a good life filled with love and routine. But maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe we've been too caught up in the routine to see what's been missing." He paused, his gaze dropping to the floor before lifting back to meet mine. "I think we need to work through this, not just as husband and wife, but as friends who've shared a life." His words, though unexpected, brought a flicker of hope. "Together?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, together," he confirmed, reaching out to take my hand. "We need help, Amelia. Let's find a therapist, someone who can guide us through this. We need to learn to communicate better, to rediscover each other." The relief was palpable, a weight lifting off my shoulders. "I agree, John. I want to make this right. I want to understand myself better, and I want us to be okay." Therapy became our new routine. Dr. Luna, with her calm demeanor and insightful questions, helped us navigate through the murky waters of our emotions. Each session was like peeling back layers, revealing the raw truths we'd hidden from each other. I felt like I was suffocating in our life. "John," I admitted one session, my voice thick with emotion, "the predictability, the routine. It was like a cage." And that night with Bill, it was a cry for help, a desperate attempt to feel something real. John listened, his face a mixture of understanding and pain. "I didn't see it, Amelia. I was so wrapped up in my own world, my trains, my work. I didn't see you slipping away." Dr. Luna guided us through exercises in communication, encouraging us to express our needs and desires openly. "Amelia, what do you feel you need to feel fulfilled?" she asked. "I need adventure, spontaneity," I replied. The words, feeling both foreign and liberating. "I need to feel alive, not just going through the motions." "And John, how do you feel about this?" She turned to him. "I want to support Amelia in finding that," he said, his voice firm. "I realize now that our life has become too predictable, even for me. Maybe we can find a balance, something that allows for both our needs." Weeks turned into months, and with each session we grew closer, not just as partners, but as individuals, understanding each other's depths. John started to join me on my walks, exploring new paths, sometimes even venturing into the wilder parts of our neighborhood. We laughed, we talked, and slowly the distance between us began to close. One evening, as we sat at another neighborhood barbecue, the familiar sizzle of the grill and the clink of glasses filled the air. Bill was there, his tail wagging furiously as he fetched balls for the kids. I watched him, my heart lighter than it had been in months. John squeezed my hand, a silent acknowledgement of our journey. "I'm proud of us, Amelia," he whispered, his eyes reflecting the flickering lights of the barbecue. "We're finding our way back to each other, aren't we?" I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "Yes, we are. And it's not just about going back, John. It's about moving forward together on a new path. As the night deepened, I realized that our experience had reshaped our future. The lessons we carried forward were not just about forgiveness or understanding, but about the importance of growth, of allowing space for change within the safety of our love. We learned that life isn't just about the routine or the unexpected, it's about the balance. The dance between the three Johns model trains still ran in their loops, but now we made sure to occasionally derail them to explore new tracks together. And as for me, I found that the wild, untamed part of me wasn't something to be suppressed, but to be celebrated, shared and integrated into our life. The path forward might be unconventional, filled with therapy sessions, long walks and spontaneous trips. But it was ours. We were walking it together hand in hand with Bill's joyful barks as our soundtrack, a testament to our resilience and our commitment to each other. And so as the stars began to twinkle above, I knew that while our journey had been tumultuous, it had also been transformative. We were not just surviving. We were thriving, learning, and loving in ways we had before. This was our new beginning. A chapter where the love story of Amelia and John wasn't just written in the stars but lived out in every step we took together. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks.